You think you're being nice, everyone else thinks you're fake. According to research from the University of Chicago, people can detect inauthentic kindness in less than 3 seconds, and once they sense it, they lose trust in everything you say or do moving forward. But here's what's scary. You're probably doing at least 5 of these without realizing it. And number 11 is something almost everyone does that instantly destroys trust. Do you feel like people don't believe you? Maybe they seem distant even when you're trying your best. By the end of this video, you'll discover 15 science-backed behaviors that make you seem insincere and how to fix them so people actually trust you. But first, let me warn you, number 7 will completely change how you think about being helpful. Stay until the end because number 15 is the most shocking one that even therapists get wrong. Here's how to stop looking fake. Tip 1. Matching someone's energy sounds smart. Copying their every move is creepy. When you mirror someone's body language, tone, and words too precisely, their brain detects something is off, and they start feeling uncomfortable around you without knowing exactly why. Research from Stanford shows excessive mirroring triggers discomfort. Let it happen naturally. If you're genuinely connecting, you'll match their energy without forcing it, and this authentic synchronization builds real trust instead of suspicion. Tip 2. Good memory seems impressive. Wrong context makes it weird. When you bring up tiny details from months ago that they forgot, they don't think you're attentive, they think you're obsessive, and this makes them question why you're keeping mental files on them. A Journal of Social Psychology study found people who recalled excessive details were rated 41% less trustworthy. Remember meaningful things only. Let tiny details fade, because this mirrors how real human memory works, and people feel comfortable when your recall seems natural. But wait until you hear tip number 5. It's about something you do with your voice that makes people think you're lying, even when you're telling the truth. Tip 3. Helping without being asked seems generous. Sometimes it's insulting. When you jump in to solve problems they haven't requested help with, you're communicating that you think they're incompetent, and this creates resentment instead of gratitude because you've taken away their agency. University of Michigan research showed 63% felt belittled by unrequested help. Wait to be asked. Say, let me know if you need anything, and actually wait, because respecting someone's autonomy shows more genuine care than forcing your help when they didn't request it. Tip 4. Emotional intelligence is valuable. Weaponizing psychology terms is manipulative. When you constantly say, I'm sensing projection, or that's gaslighting, people feel diagnosed rather than heard, and this clinical language creates emotional distance instead of the connection it was meant to foster. A 2023 communication research study found therapy language users were rated less empathetic. Speak like a real person. Instead of saying you're experiencing dysregulation, just say you seem upset. What's going on? Because simple concern builds more trust than vocabulary that sounds rehearsed. Tip 5. Speaking softly seems gentle. Forcing a higher pitch sounds fake. When you artificially raise your voice to sound friendlier or approachable, people's brains detect the inconsistency between your natural tone and your performed voice. And this mismatch triggers their distrust alarm even if they can't consciously identify what's wrong. Research from the Journal of Voice found that forced vocal changes reduce trustworthiness ratings by 34%. Use your natural voice. People feel more comfortable with consistent tonality, even if it's less sweet sounding, because authenticity in vocal patterns signals honesty, while performed voices signal deception. Keep watching because tip number 9 reveals the one word you're using that makes everyone think you're manipulative. Tip 6. Doing good things is admirable. Broadcasting every good deed is suspicious. When you post or announce every nice thing you do, people question whether you're actually kind or just building an image, and this public performance makes your kindness seem transactional rather than genuine. Yale research found public helpers were trusted 49% less. Help without the announcement. Do kind things when nobody's watching, and let others discover your generosity naturally, because true kindness doesn't require witnesses, and people trust those whose actions match their words even in private. Tip 7. Clarifying your motives seems honest. Doing it constantly looks guilty. When you always explain why you're doing something nice before, during, and after you do it, people start wondering if you're trying to convince them or yourself, and this excessive justification makes your kindness seem calculated rather than natural. A study in social cognition found that people who frequently explain their helpful actions were perceived as 38% less genuine. Just help quietly. When you do something kind without a preamble about your pure intentions, people assume the best. But when you keep explaining yourself, they start questioning what you're really after. Tip 8. Empathy means understanding feelings.
Copying emotions exactly is theatrical. When someone shares something sad and you immediately match their exact intensity like an actor, it feels rehearsed rather than real, and people sense you're performing empathy instead of actually feeling it with them. Psychological science research showed perfect emotional matching felt scripted. Show authentic concern instead. A calm, steady presence often provides more comfort than someone spiraling alongside them. And this grounded support shows real empathy because you're strong enough to hold space for their emotions. Coming up, tip number 12 is about a touching habit that makes people physically uncomfortable around you. Tip 9. Softening your words seems polite. Using just constantly undermines you. When you say, "I just wanted to check in," or "just wondering if you could help," you're diminishing your needs and making yourself seem insecure. And people interpret this excessive softening as a sign you're being fake nice to manipulate them into saying yes. Research from Harvard Business Review found that just users were rated as less confident and less trustworthy. State things directly. Say, "I wanted to check in," or "Can you help me with this?" Because owning your request shows authenticity, while hedging makes people think you're hiding your true intentions.
Tip 10. Building common ground seems smart. Constantly mentioning mutual friends is suspicious. When you keep bringing up people you both know, it signals you're trying too hard to establish credibility, and this makes people wonder if you're using others to seem more connected than you really are. Columbia University found name droppers were viewed as 37% less authentic. Let connections surface naturally. Mention a mutual friend once if relevant, but don't keep circling back, because real relationships are built on direct interaction, and people trust those who can stand on their own without borrowed credibility. Tip 11. Quick agreement seems supportive. Premature yes sounds rehearsed. When you start nodding and saying "absolutely" before someone finishes their sentence, it signals you're not actually listening, but rather waiting for your turn to respond. And this performative agreement makes people feel unheard, despite your enthusiastic validation. A study in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology found premature agreeers were rated 42% less trustworthy. Listen completely first. Let them finish their thought, pause for a moment, then respond thoughtfully, because this demonstrates you're actually processing what they said rather than performing supportiveness on autopilot. Stick around for tip number 14 about the question you're asking that makes people think you're interrogating them.
Tip 12. Light touch can build connection. Calculated touching feels violating. When you touch someone's arm, shoulder, or back at precisely the right moments, like you learned from a social skills guide, people sense the calculation behind it, and this manipulative physicality makes them distrust your entire approach to the relationship. Research from the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior found that strategic touchers were avoided 56% more than non-touchers. Touch only when natural. If you have to think about when and where to touch someone, you're probably forcing intimacy that hasn't developed yet, and people's bodies instinctively recoil from touch that feels like a technique.
Tip 13. Meaningful conversations are valuable. Forcing depth too fast is invasive. When you barely know someone and ask, "What's your biggest fear?" you're not creating intimacy, you're making them uncomfortable, because real vulnerability develops gradually, not on command in the first conversation. Journal of Personality Research showed premature deep questions reduced trust by 44%. Earn deep conversations gradually. Start with surface topics and let people reveal themselves at their own pace, because respecting boundaries around vulnerability shows more care than rushing toward false intimacy that serves your desire for connection. Tip 14. Checking in seems caring. Asking constantly feels like interrogation. When you ask, "How are you doing?" multiple times in one conversation, or every single time you see someone, it stops being genuine concern and starts feeling like you're mining for emotional content, and people begin to feel pressured to produce feelings for your consumption. Research from communication studies found that overcheckers were perceived as intrusive rather than caring. Ask thoughtfully once. If they give a surface answer, respect it instead of probing deeper, because not every interaction needs to be an emotional inventory, and people appreciate those who can share space without requiring emotional labor. The final tip is the most important one, because it's the foundation of all fake behavior.
Tip 15.
Managing your emotions is mature. Showing the work is manipulative. When you make a big show of calming yourself down, taking deep breaths loudly, or announcing, "I'm choosing to be patient right now," you're not demonstrating emotional intelligence. You're making others responsible for witnessing and validating your self-control effort. A study in the Emotion Journal found that visible emotional regulation was seen as a guilt-inducing tactic.
Regulate privately. Handle your emotions internally without broadcasting the process, because mature people manage themselves quietly. And when you perform your emotional work, people feel manipulated into appreciating your restraint rather than experiencing genuine interaction. These 15 tips reveal how insincere behavior destroys social trust and why authenticity matters more than perfect manners. Genuine kindness and sincere communication create real connections, while fake niceness breaks relationship trust. Self-awareness helps you avoid fake behavior and kindness mistakes that damage social perception. Emotional intelligence means understanding that trust building requires authenticity, not performance. Which tips surprised you most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to Brainwise for more psychology insights and hit the bell for our next video about signs someone is secretly jealous of you.